Every October, you see them everywhere, glowing orange faces lighting up porches and windowsills all across the world. But have you ever stopped and really wondered, why pumpkins? Out of all the fruits and vegetables out there, how did this humble, round squash become the undisputed king of Halloween? Well, get ready to have your mind blown, because today we're peeling back the layers of this mystery. We're going on an incredible journey through time, from ancient civilizations and sacred harvest rituals to spooky Irish folklore and good old American tradition. We're going to uncover the fascinating and, frankly, surprising story of the pumpkin and dig up its deep, tangled roots in the history of Halloween. Our story doesn't start in a spooky graveyard or a haunted house. It starts thousands of years ago, long before Halloween even existed. The earliest evidence of pumpkins we've found dates back over 7,000 years. Archaeologists discovered ancient pumpkin seeds in Central and South America, in the regions we now know as Mexico and Peru. So, for millennia, this fruit has been part of human history. Even the name pumpkin has its own little journey. It comes from the Greek word pepon, which simply means large melon. As language evolved, the word travelled through French, becoming pompon, and then to English as pumpkin, before finally landing on the familiar word we use today, pumpkin. For the indigenous peoples of the Americas, pumpkins weren't just a decoration, they were a cornerstone of life itself. Alongside corn and beans, pumpkins were part of a sacred agricultural trio known as the Three Sisters. These three crops were grown together in a symbiotic relationship that sustained both the land and the people. They weren't just food, they represented a perfect harmony in nature. These ancient farmers were incredibly resourceful. They would dry strips of pumpkin flesh to preserve them for the long, hard winters. The seeds, rich in nutrients, were roasted for a protein-packed snack. And even the tough outer shells weren't wasted. They were hollowed out and used as bowls, cups, and storage containers. Long before the first jack-o'-lantern was ever carved, the pumpkin was revered as a powerful symbol of the harvest, of abundance, and of life itself. But how did this symbol of sustenance and life get connected to a holiday all about ghosts, ghouls, and things that go bump in the night? To answer that, we have to leave the Americas for a moment and travel across the Atlantic Ocean to the misty green hills of ancient Ireland. This is where the spooky part of our story really begins. The origins of Halloween can be traced back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. Celebrated on October 31st, Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time of year often associated with darkness and death. The Celts believed that on the night of Samhain, the veil between the living world and the spirit world was at its thinnest. This meant that ghosts of the dead could return to Earth. To ward off these wandering, and sometimes malevolent, spirits, people would light bonfires and wear costumes to disguise themselves. But they also had another tradition, and this is where our pumpkin connection starts to take shape. They would carve spooky faces into large vegetables, like turnips and potatoes, which were plentiful in Ireland. They'd place a burning ember or a candle inside, creating a miniature lantern. These weren't for decoration, they were meant to scare away evil spirits. Now, this tradition is tied to a famous piece of Irish folklore, the story of Stingy Jack. The legend goes that Jack was a cunning, deceitful man who tricked the devil not once, but twice. The first time, he trapped the devil in a tree and only let him down after the devil promised not to bother him for 10 years. The second time, he tricked the devil into promising never to claim his soul. Well, Jack eventually died, but his life of sin meant he couldn't get into heaven. And because of his deal, the devil couldn't take him into hell either. So, poor Jack was doomed to wander the earth for eternity, stuck in the dark space between good and evil. The devil, taking a little bit of pity on him, tossed Jack a single burning coal from the fires of hell to light his way. Jack placed the coal inside a hollowed-out turnip he was eating, and from that day on, Jack of the Lantern, or Jack-o'-lantern, has been roaming the darkness, carrying his ghostly light. So, the original Jack-o'-lanterns weren't pumpkins at all. They were carved turnips, potatoes, and even beets, carried by people in Ireland and other parts of the British Isles to frighten away spirits like Stingy Jack. So how did we get from turnips in Ireland to pumpkins in America? The answer lies in immigration. In the mid-1800s, millions of Irish people fled to the United States to escape the Great Famine. They brought their rich culture and cherished traditions with them, including the Festival of Samhain and the practice of carving jack-o'-lanterns. When they arrived in their new home, they found that America had something even better for carving than turnips. It had pumpkins. Pumpkins were native to North America. They were abundant, and their large, hollow, and relatively soft flesh made them perfect for carving intricate and spooky faces. It was a match made in Halloween heaven. The Irish immigrants quickly adapted their tradition, swapping the humble turnip for the grand, orange pumpkin. And the American public loved it. The practice of carving pumpkins spread like wildfire, transforming from an ancient folk ritual into a beloved American pastime. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Halloween parties and pumpkin carving were becoming mainstream traditions across the country. This transition from a European folk custom to an American cultural staple is a perfect example of how traditions evolve and adapt. The pumpkin, a fruit that was sacred to Native Americans for its life-giving properties, was merged with an Irish legend to ward off spirits, creating the iconic symbol we know and love today. It's fascinating, isn't it? The jack-o'-lantern on your porch is more than just a Halloween decoration. It's a cultural melting pot in fruit form. It carries the history of ancient American agriculture, the echoes of Celtic festivals, the ghost story of an Irish trickster, and the story of immigrants creating a new life in a new land. So, the next time you pick out that perfect pumpkin, or scoop out its seeds, or carve a silly or scary face into its side, take a moment to think about its incredible journey. You're not just getting ready for Halloween, you're taking part in a tradition that spans continents and stretches back thousands of years. You're connecting with ancient farmers, Celtic mystics, and generations of families who have all found their own meaning in this remarkable fruit. From a symbol of life and sustenance to a beacon against wandering spirits. The pumpkin has truly earned its place as the icon of Halloween. It's a story of survival, belief, and adaptation, all wrapped up in a bright orange shell. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical adventure today. I hope you've learned something new and have a whole new appreciation for the humble pumpkin. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the hidden histories of the world around us. Happy Halloween and happy carving. For many of us, it's probably a pumpkin, right? Carved into a spooky face, baked into a pie, or flavoring our lattes. Pumpkins have become the undeniable icon of the season. But have you ever stopped to wonder why? How did this one particular squash become so deeply intertwined with our autumn celebrations, especially Halloween? Well, the story is far more fascinating and globe-trotting than you might think. It's a tale that stretches back thousands of years, across continents, and involves ancient spirits, mischievous folklore, and a little bit of botanical luck. So, grab a warm drink, get cozy, and let's peel back the layers on the incredible history of the pumpkin. Believe it or not, the story of our modern jack-o'-lantern doesn't start with a pumpkin at all. Pumpkins, along with all other types of squash, are native to the Americas. They've been cultivated here for over 7,500 years. Indigenous peoples across North and Central America relied on them as a vital food source. They were nutrient-rich, versatile, and could be stored for long periods, making them perfect for surviving harsh winters. They would roast pumpkin strips over fires, dry them, and grind them into flour. The seeds were eaten and also used for medicine. The shells. They were dried and used as bowls and containers. For thousands of years, the pumpkin was a symbol of sustenance and ingenuity, a cornerstone of daily life. It was deeply respected, but it wasn't spooky, not yet. The spooky part of our story actually begins across the Atlantic Ocean, in ancient Europe, with a completely different vegetable. To understand how pumpkins got their spooky reputation, we need to travel back in time to the ancient Celts of Ireland and Britain. They celebrated a festival called Samhain, pronounced Samhain. This wasn't a party in the modern sense, it was a deeply significant time of year. Samhain marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter, the darker half of the year. The Celts believed that on the night of October 31st, the veil between our world and the spirit world became incredibly thin. This meant that ghosts of the dead, fairies, and other supernatural beings could walk among the living. It was a time of both reverence and fear. People would leave out food and offerings to appease the friendly spirits of their ancestors. But they also needed a way to protect themselves from the more malevolent entities that might be wandering about. So, how did they protect themselves? They lit massive bonfires to ward off the darkness and the spirits within it. And most importantly for our story, they started carving. But they weren't carving pumpkins. They used the vegetables they had on hand, turnips, large potatoes, and beets. They would hollow out these tough root vegetables and carve grotesque faces into them. A lit piece of coal or a candle would be placed inside, making the terrifying faces glow ominously in the dark. These weren't just decorations, they were talismans. The Celts believed these gruesome lanterns would scare away the wandering evil spirits, or they were used to represent the spirits themselves. Imagine walking through a village on a dark Samhain night, with these glowing, ghoulish faces peering at you from every doorstep. It must have been an incredibly powerful and eerie sight. This tradition of carving turnips continued for centuries, evolving with folklore. One of the most famous tales associated with these lanterns is the Irish legend of Stingy Jack. The story goes that Jack was a cunning and miserly blacksmith who tricked the devil not once, but twice. The first time, he trapped the devil in a tree by carving a cross into the bark. He only let the devil down after he promised not to bother Jack for 10 years and not to claim his soul when he died. When Jack eventually did die, his life had been too sinful for him to enter heaven. But when he went to the gates of hell, the devil, true to his word, refused to take his soul. Cursing Jack to wander the earth for eternity, the devil tossed him a single burning coal from the fires of hell to light his way. Jack placed the coal into a hollowed-out turnip he was eating and has been roaming the night ever since. People began to call this ghostly figure Jack of the Lantern, which was eventually shortened to Jack-o'-lantern. And so, people in Ireland and Scotland would carve their own turnip lanterns to frighten away Jack's wandering soul and other evil spirits. Now, let's fast forward to the 19th century. Huge numbers of Irish and Scottish immigrants began moving to America, seeking new opportunities and fleeing hardships like the Great Potato Famine. Of course, they brought their rich traditions and folklore with them, including the practice of carving jack-o'-lanterns for Halloween, which had evolved from the ancient festival of Samhain. When they arrived in their new home, they found something that was absolutely perfect for their tradition. It was native to this new land, it was plentiful, and it was much, much easier to carve than a tough old turnip. You guessed it, the pumpkin. The large, hollow, soft-fleshed pumpkin was a carver's dream compared to a dense beet or turnip. It didn't take long for the pumpkin to completely replace the turnip as the jack-o'-lantern of choice in America. The tradition exploded in popularity, and the American pumpkin, once a simple symbol of sustenance, was now forever linked with the spooky, supernatural tales from the old world. But let's not forget, while the Celtic tradition of Samhain gave us the jack-o'-lantern, the spirit of the harvest festival was a universal human experience. Long before pumpkins became spooky, cultures all over the world were celebrating the bounty of the earth. In Asia, you have magnificent festivals like the Mid-Autumn Festival in China and Chuseok in Korea. These celebrations are centered around the full moon of the harvest season. Families gather to share meals, exchange mooncakes, and give thanks for a successful harvest. It's a time of gratitude, family reunion, and appreciation for nature's cycles. Similarly, in Africa, many communities have historically held grand celebrations for the yam harvest. The yam is a staple food, and a good harvest meant prosperity and survival for the community. These festivals are filled with music, dancing, and feasting, reinforcing community bonds and giving thanks to the earth and the ancestors. So, what does this all mean for our beloved pumpkin? It means the pumpkin sits at a fascinating crossroads of culture and history. It carries the ancient American legacy of being a symbol of life, nourishment, and survival. It also wears the face of ancient European folklore, a symbol of the supernatural, of protecting ourselves from the unknown, and of the boundary between worlds. It's this unique blend that makes it so powerful. When we carve a pumpkin, we're participating in a tradition that's both ancient and modern, both American and Irish, both celebratory and a little bit spooky. The pumpkin embodies the duality of the autumn season itself, the joy of the harvest, and the somber reality of approaching winter, the light of celebration and the darkness of the unknown. Next time you pick out that perfect pumpkin from the patch or see a row of glowing jack-o'-lanterns on a porch, take a moment to appreciate its incredible journey. Think of the ancient indigenous farmers who first cultivated it. Think of the Celtic villagers carving faces into turnips to ward off spirits. Think of the Irish immigrants who brought their stories to a new land and found a new canvas for their traditions. And think of all the cultures around the world who, in their own unique ways, have always taken a moment to give thanks for the harvest. The pumpkin isn't just a decoration, it's a storyteller. It tells a global story of gratitude, survival, community, and our timeless fascination with the magic of the changing seasons. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey today. I hope it gives you a whole new appreciation for the humble pumpkin. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have any family traditions involving pumpkins? Let me know. Until next time, stay curious. Ever wonder why we carve pumpkins for Halloween? It's not just for fun. It's a tradition that comes from a spooky old Irish folktale. Get ready to meet the man, the myth, the legend behind the jack-o'-lantern, Stingy Jack. So, who was this Jack guy? Picture this, a clever, but not so nice, trickster living in Old Ireland. Jack was famous for his sharp wit and his love of playing pranks, especially on those who didn't deserve it. His reputation was so widespread that it even reached the ears of the devil himself. Intrigued, the devil decided to come and collect Jack's mischievous soul, but Jack wasn't going down without a fight. He challenged the devil to a drink and then, true to his name, claimed he had no money to pay. Jack cleverly suggested the devil transform into a silver coin to cover the bill. The moment he did, Jack snatched the coin and popped it into his pocket, right next to a silver cross. The devil was trapped. Jack only agreed to free him after the devil promised not to bother him for a whole year. A year later, the devil returned. But Jack, ever the schemer, had another trick up his sleeve. He asked the devil to climb an apple tree to fetch him one last piece of fruit. As soon as the devil was high up in the branches, Jack quickly carved a cross into the tree trunk, trapping him once again. This time, Jack made the devil promise to never, ever claim his soul. The devil, furious but defeated, had no choice but to agree. Years went by, and eventually Jack's life came to an end. He went up to the pearly gates of heaven, but due to his stingy and deceitful life, he was turned away. With nowhere else to go, he headed down to the gates of hell. But the devil, still bitter about being tricked twice, upheld his promise. He refused to let Jack in. "But where will I go?" Jack cried out. "It's so dark." The devil, with a touch of wicked irony, tossed Jack a single, eternally burning coal from the fires of hell. To carry this ember, Jack hollowed out his favorite food, a turnip, and placed the glowing coal inside. And so he was doomed to wander the earth for eternity, a lonely spirit in the darkness, known only as Jack of the Lantern. To ward off Jack's restless spirit, people in Ireland and Scotland started carving their own lanterns. They take turnips and potatoes, carve scary faces into them, and place a candle inside to frighten away Jack and any other evil spirits lurking in the night. When Irish immigrants arrived in America in the 1800s, they brought this tradition with them. They soon discovered a new, perfect canvas for their lanterns, the pumpkin. It was bigger, softer, and much easier to carve, and just like that, the iconic pumpkin jack-o'-lantern we all know and love today was born. So next time you're carving that spooky or silly face, remember the tale of Stingy Jack, wandering in the dark with his turnip lantern. Happy Halloween! I mean, they're not just for pies anymore, they're on our doorsteps, in our lattes. And they've become the ultimate symbol of autumn. But how did this humble gourd become such a cultural superstar? Well, let's dive into the fascinating history of the pumpkin. Our story really kicks off in the 19th century, when the pumpkin became deeply woven into the fabric of American identity. Think back to the very first Thanksgiving feasts. Alongside the turkey and cranberries, pumpkins were a staple. Colonists and early Americans relied on them as a crucial food source, turning them into hearty pies, warming soups, and comforting stews. The pumpkin wasn't just food, it was a symbol of the harvest, of abundance, and of home. It represented survival and the bounty of the new land. But the pumpkin's journey didn't stop in the kitchen. It soon captured the imagination of storytellers. The great American writer Washington Irving gave the pumpkin its most legendary role in the legend of Sleepy Hollow. I'm sure you know the one. The terrifying headless horseman chasing poor Ichabod Crane, holding a flaming pumpkin head. This single story cemented the pumpkin's place in folklore, forever linking it with spooky tales and the mystery of the night. It was the perfect ingredient to transform the pumpkin from a simple crop into a cultural icon. As the years went by, Halloween itself started to change. It transformed from an ancient, spiritual festival into the fun, family-friendly holiday we celebrate today. And what was at the very center of this transformation? You guessed it, the pumpkin. It became the official face of Halloween by the early 1900s. Carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns was a beloved tradition across the country. Communities started holding pumpkin carving contests, autumn fairs, and festive parades, all celebrating this amazing gourd, from a simple food source to a spooky legend. The pumpkin has had an incredible journey, and it's what makes our modern Halloween celebrations so vibrant and special. So next time you carve a jacko, lantern, or enjoy a slice of pumpkin pie, you'll know you're taking part in a tradition that's centuries old. What are your favorite pumpkin traditions? Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this little slice of history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. For most of us, it's probably a spooky jacko, lantern grinning on a porch. Right, Halloween and pumpkins seem inseparable, but what if I told you that this humble gourd holds a world of meaning far beyond just one spooky night? From Tokyo to Tuscany, the pumpkin tells a different story, and today we're going on a global journey to uncover its incredible cultural significance. So, grab a pumpkin spice latte, get comfy, and let's explore how the world sees the pumpkin. Our first stop is Japan. While Halloween is a relatively new import there, the Japanese have embraced it with their own unique and adorable twist. Forget scary faces. In Japan, it's all about kawaii, the culture of cuteness. Walk through Tokyo in October, and you'll find pumpkins with wide, sparkling eyes, cheerful smiles, and maybe even a little bow. It's a fantastic blend of Western tradition and local artistry. The Japanese have taken the symbol of the pumpkin and transformed it into an expression of joy and playful creativity. It's less about fright and more about delight, showing how a tradition can be beautifully adapted to fit a new cultural landscape. Now, let's travel across the Pacific to Mexico, where the pumpkin plays a deeply spiritual role in a celebration that is both beautiful and profound, Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. Here, pumpkins, known as calabaza, are not for carving scary faces. Instead, they are turned into a delicious sweet treat called calabaza en tacha, or candied pumpkin. This sweet pumpkin is placed on ofrendas, or altars, as an offering to welcome the spirits of departed loved ones back to the world of the living. The sweetness represents the sweet memories and the love that remains for those who have passed. It's a symbol of remembrance, a way to honor family, and a beautiful testament to the idea that life, like the sweetness of the pumpkin, endures even after death. Next, we're off to Europe, specifically Italy, in the heart of autumn. As the leaves turn golden, Italy comes alive with fall festivals and the pumpkin. Zucca is the star of the show. From the northern regions of Lombardy to Veneto, the pumpkin is a celebrated symbol of the harvest, representing abundance, prosperity, and good fortune. You'll find it in countless delicious dishes, creamy risottos, sweet-filled ravioli, and rich, comforting soups. For Italians, the pumpkin is a taste of home, a connection to the land, and a celebration of the bounty the earth provides. Its round, full shape is seen as a sign of fullness and a prosperous life, warming both the stomach and the soul during the cooler months. Our final destination takes us to India, where the pumpkin holds ancient spiritual significance. Here, it's not just a food item. It's a sacred tool for protection. In many Hindu rituals, a pumpkin, often an ash gourd, is used to absorb negative energies and ward off the evil eye. It is common to see a pumpkin smashed in front of a new home or business to cleanse the space of any bad spirits. This practice remarkably echoes the ancient Celtic traditions that inspired the jacko, lantern, where carved gourds were used to protect people from wandering spirits. It's a fascinating link across cultures and centuries, showing a shared human desire for safety and spiritual purity, with the humble pumpkin at the center of it all. So, from a cute character in Japan, a sweet offering in Mexico, a symbol of abundance in Italy, to a spiritual protector in India, the pumpkin is so much more than just a Halloween decoration. Its round, golden-orange shape is a universal symbol of life, warmth, and the cyclical nature of renewal. It reminds us of the harvest, the turning of the seasons, and the unique ways different cultures find meaning in the world around them. The next time you see a pumpkin, I hope you'll remember its incredible journey and the many stories it has to tell. Thank you so much for joining me on this cultural adventure. Take a walk outside on a crisp autumn day, and you'll see them everywhere, on front porches, in coffee shops, decorating store windows. I'm talking, of course, about pumpkins. Have you ever stopped to wonder how this humble orange gourd became the undisputed king of fall? It is a story that is much deeper and more fascinating than just carving spooky faces once a year. Today, we're peeling back the layers of the pumpkin to discover how it grew from a simple crop into a massive cultural icon that defines a whole season. So, grab your coziest blanket and maybe a pumpkin spice latte, because we're about to dive into the amazing world of pumpkins. The story starts thousands of years ago, not in a spooky European village, but right here in the Americas, long before the first jack-o'-lantern was ever carved. Pumpkins were a superfood for Native American tribes. They were one of the three sisters. Along with corn and beans, a trio of crops that grew together harmoniously and provided complete nutrition. Pumpkins were incredibly versatile. They could be roasted, boiled, or dried and ground into flour. The shells were even used as bowls and containers. They weren't just food. They were a cornerstone of survival. A reliable source of sustenance that could be stored through long, harsh winters. When European settlers arrived, they were introduced to this amazing fruit and quickly adopted it into their own diet, learning from the indigenous people how to cultivate and cook it. So, how did this essential food source become tangled up with ghosts and ghouls? For that, we have to travel across the Atlantic to Ireland and the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. Samhain marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter, a time when the Celts believed the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest. To ward off wandering spirits, they would carve scary faces into turnips and potatoes, placing a burning coal inside to create a spooky lantern. They called these jack-o'-lanterns, based on the folktale of a man named Stingy Jack. As Irish immigrants moved to America in the 19th century, they brought this tradition with them. But they soon discovered that the Native American pumpkin was much larger and far easier to carve than a turnip, and just like that, the pumpkin found its new, spooky calling. From that point on, the pumpkin's fame just exploded. It became the official face of Halloween, a symbol recognized all over the world. But its influence didn't stop there. Think about it, what other fruit gets its own entire flavor profile? The pumpkin spice phenomenon is a modern cultural giant. It all started with the spices used in pumpkin pie: cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and cloves. Today, that flavor is in everything from our coffee and lattes to candles, snacks, and even dog treats. It's a taste that instantly transports us to a cozy, nostalgic autumn day. This flavor has become a billion-dollar industry, proving the pumpkin's power extends far beyond the porch step. It's a taste, a smell, and a feeling all rolled into one. Beyond Halloween spooks and spiced lattes, the pumpkin has grown into a powerful symbol of community, creativity, and the harvest season itself. Every fall, families gather at pumpkin patches, searching for that perfect specimen. The act of carving a pumpkin together has become a cherished family tradition, a chance to get creative and a little messy. These glowing creations then light up our neighborhoods, each unique face contributing to a collective, festive glow. And it's not just families. Artists and sculptors have taken pumpkin carving to a whole new level, creating mind-blowing masterpieces that are showcased at huge festivals around the world. These events draw massive crowds, all coming together to celebrate this amazing gourd. The pumpkin reminds us to gather, to create, and to celebrate the bounty and beauty of the season. So, the next time you see a pumpkin, whether it's a grinning jacko, lantern, a slice of pie, or just the flavor in your morning coffee, remember its incredible journey. From an ancient superfood that sustained civilizations to a spooky lantern that wards off spirits, and now a global symbol of autumn, comfort, and community. The pumpkin is so much more than just a decoration, it's a piece of history, a canvas for creativity, and a reminder of the magic that a change in season can bring. It truly is the heart of autumn. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and exploring the wonderful world of the pumpkin. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. I'd love to hear about your favorite pumpkin traditions in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.